Muy buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. We'd like to welcome you to the ceremony of the Bbva Frontiers of Knowledge Awards in its 10th edition this year. And we are about to welcome Francisco González, who is chairman of the Bbva and chairman of the Foundation Bbva, and Rosa Menendez, who is from the CSCIC, from the Scientific Council of Scientific Research. We also have the Secretary of State, Carlos Torres, who is a Bbva CEO and who is a trustee of the Bbva Foundation, as well as Rafael Pardo, who is director of the Bbva Foundation.
A continuación van a hacer su
Next, let us welcome the prize winners of the current edition. In the 9 previous editions, 104 researchers and institutions received the Frontiers of Knowledge Awards for basic contributions in the 8 categories of these awards. 4 contributions that have allowed us to go beyond the inherited explicative models and have allowed us to better understand the world and how we act in it, as well as opening the frontiers of artistic creation in the field of music. To this select group, we will also have the 14 prize winners of this 10th edition. Bbva Frontiers of Knowledge Award on Basic Sciences, Professor Omar Yaghi from California University at Berkeley. Bbva Frontiers of Knowledge Award in Information and Communication Technologies for Professors Shafi Goldwasser, Silvia Micali, and Ronald Rivest at Massachusetts Technological Institute, MIT, and Professor Adi Shamir from the Institute of Science, the Weizmann Institute of Science. Bbva Foundation Frontiers of Knowledge Award in Biomedicine, Dr. James Allison, MD, Anderson Cancer Center of Texas University. Bbva Frontier of Knowledge Award in Climatic Change for Professor William Nordhaus from Yale University. Bbva Frontier of Knowledge Award in Ecology and Conservation Biology, Professors Rosemary Grant and Peter Grant from Princeton University. Bbva Foundation Frontier of Knowledge Award in Economics, Finance, and Business Management, Professors Timothy Breshnasan, Stanford University, Ariel Pakes, Harvard University, and Robert Porter, Northwestern University. Bbva Foundation Frontier of Knowledge Award in Cooperation for Development, Dr. Nubia Munoz, National Cancer Institute of Colombia and International Agency for Cancer Research, Lyon, France. and Bbva Foundation Frontier of Knowledge Award in Contemporaneous Music for the composer Kaya Sarayaho. As you have just seen by the listing of each one of these categories, these awards reflect the map of knowledge in the 21st century. We have representation from classical disciplines as well as areas characteristic of the second half of the past century and the current century. The 8 categories are basic sciences, information and communication technologies, biomedicine, climatic change, ecology and conservation biology, the economy, cooperation for development, and music. In each one of these families of prizes, we'd like to distinguish contributions of huge impact for those who have carried them out, and they're open to individual recognition as well as for teams and groups who, working in collaboration or in parallel, have made it possible to make a given contribution. Through the prize winners, we want to pay tribute to the whole of the artistic and scientific community at the same time that we increase the visibility in the public space of knowledge and art. Without the daily and silent work of many researchers and artistic creators, great developments would not take place. Next, we're going to see a video from the prize winners in their respective working environments.
El proceso de nominación
The process by which these prizes are granted is completely open. The main universities, institutions, and artistic and scientific institutions at a global scale present every year their candidacies that are pre-assessed by an experts committee and then valued by 8 juries at international level, integrated by the main specialist in each one of these categories in the world. The grants rationale for the granting of these awards will be found in the catalog of awards that will be handed at the end of this ceremony and will be also present on our webpage. Next, a representative of each one of the juries will read a brief extract of the granting minutes of these awards. In the category of basic sciences, the jury has been chaired by the Nobel Physics Prize winner and director of the spectroscopy division of the Max Planck Institute, who will read now the minutes.
The jury in basic sciences has bestowed the award on Omar Yaghi for his pioneering work in the conception and synthesis of new crystalline materials, MOFs and COFs, and their impact in science and engineering, with potential applications that extend to capturing and storing carbon dioxide or harvesting water from the atmosphere.
Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, friends and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank the Bbva Foundation and the award jury members for honoring me with the 2018 Bbva Frontiers of Knowledge Award in the Basic Sciences. The idea of building extended structures from molecular building blocks has been a long-standing dream of scientists. I am deeply touched by the Bbva Foundation for recognizing the strategies we designed and the methods we discovered to create metal organic frameworks, MOFs, and covalent organic frameworks, COFs, and to make them as crystals. Crystals are the jewels of our being. They transform our view of matter and advance the frontiers of knowledge because we can peer into their nature and learn things not possible in any other way. Now, MOF and COF crystals represent the largest class of materials ever made, leading to the development of a new kind of chemistry, reticular chemistry. They are useful in a myriad of applications, not the least of which is harvesting water from desert air and capturing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. They are being studied in over 1,000 research laboratories worldwide and applied by new emerging industries. You might be surprised to learn that when I started my independent work, I was determined to do chemistry without influence from society. In other words, I wanted to do basic research, where one goes into the unknown with no guarantee of success, looking for the thrill of discovery. I believed, and still do, that the independence of science is paramount to doing transformative science. How can we discover if we are told what to discover? How can the human mind liberate itself when it is being channeled to very specific goals? How can we understand nature, and how can nature reveal itself to those who are forced to look away from nature? The answer is by society guaranteeing the independence of science and the freedom of scientists to do basic research, to make discoveries which profoundly impact our world. I have been fortunate over the years to have students unafraid of failure, brave and brilliant, and I am eternally thankful to those who funded my research for allowing us to fail and for giving us the independence and freedom to carry out high-risk research. This was necessary to map out the unknown territories of building on the atomic level these beautiful and useful structures, and ultimately to develop this dazzling area of research. Thank you very much.
Toma ahora la palabra el secretario.
Now the Secretary of the Jury of Information Communication Technologies, Professor Mario Patini, takes the floor. He is a professor of University of Castilla-La Mancha.
The jury has bestowed the award on Shafi Goldwasser, Silvio Micali, Ronald Rivest, and Adi Shamer for the fundamental contributions to modern cryptology that have enabled the safe and secure transmission of electronic data in multiple domains and underpinned developments like digital signatures, blockchain technology, and cryptocurrencies.
En nombre de los galardonados, lee el discurso de aceptación del premio.
The reading of the acceptance of the speech on behalf of the jury. Will be read by Professor Ronald Rivest.
Ahora sí, en nombre de los galardonados.
Now, on behalf of the winners, Professor Ronald Rivest will read the acceptance speech.
Members of the Presidency, authorities, and distinguished guests, I would like to begin on behalf of myself and my co-awardees, Professor Shafi Goldwasser, Professor Sylvia Macaulay, and Professor Adi Shamir, by thanking the Bbva Foundation for this recognition and this very prestigious award. We would like to thank all of our collaborators, including our students, for their numerous and wonderful contributions to the field. We would like to thank in particular Whit Diffie, Marty Hellman, Ralph Merkel, Len Edelman, Manny Blum, Charlie Rakoff, Oded Goldreich, and Avi Vigderson. We would like to thank our spouses and families for their love and support. Professor Goldwasser would like to especially thank her boys, Lior and Yonadav. Professor Macaulay gives exceptional thanks to Daniela, Stefano, and Enrico. I would like to thank my wife, Gail, and our wonderful boys, Alexander and Christopher. Professor Shamir would like to thank his wife, Leah, and their awesome kids, Ohad, Naama, and Maya. Our families have brought us all much joy and pride. Cryptography is an old art form and a young science, and our work over the last 40 years has helped in making this transition. Today, cryptography is both a thriving scientific research field and an essential technology in our increasingly digitized society and economy. It is a crossroads for the researchers in mathematics, computational complexity, statistics, hardware security, biometrics, and even law. And its applications include security and digitally signed communication, e-commerce, and the thriving field of cryptocurrencies. Our work spans all of these fields and more. Cryptography is one of the most pessimistic branches of science. It assumes the existence of extremely powerful adversaries who can read all of your messages, generate fake messages, or modify your keys and your random bits. However, it is also one of the most optimistic branches of science, showing how you can overcome such difficulties by using the power of mathematics and computer algorithms of the type we and our colleagues have developed. We hope that the award we have received here today will inspire others to join us in a continuing effort to secure our common digital future. Again, we thank the BBVA Foundation for this very generous and meaningful award.
La profesora
Professor Angelika Schnicke, Professor of Biotechnology at Munich Technical University, has presided the jury on biomedicine and will next read the minutes, the resume of the minutes.
The jury has bestowed the award on James P. Allison for his work that led to harnessing the immune system to combat cancer in patients and to develop new therapies.
I want to thank the BBVA Foundation for bestowing this honor on me. I'm really humbled and honored to be here. I'm honored because it's such a great award, humbled to be in the company of such an august body of people contributing to the arts and sciences in the world. And as a basic scientist, I've been blessed to see my research findings translate into a powerful new strategy for cancer therapy. As an example, in 2006, I met a 24-year-old melanoma patient named Sharon. More than a year later, her doctors had told her that she had only a few months to live. She had received multiple prior therapies, but cancers continued to grow. As a last resort, she joined a clinical trial of my then experimental drug called anti-CTLA-4. Within 3 months, her tumor shrank and disappeared. When I met her a year later, we hugged and cried after her doctor said there was no evidence of cancer anymore. Sharon and I, over the years, have become really good friends. She's now almost 13 years out from her therapy and enjoying a life with a vibrant family with 2 children. Whenever I meet patients who have benefited from from checkpoint therapy, it's overwhelming, and sometimes my emotions get the best of me. When I began my career in the 1970s, cellular immunology was in its infancy. In 1994, my lab identified a signal called CTLA-4 that acts as a brake on the immune system, stopping T-cell responses before they caused damage to normal tissues. Previous attempts to mobilize T-cells against cancer had given disappointing results. If we could block the brakes, I reasoned, we could allow T-cells to keep going and destroy large tumors. This worked beautifully to destroy the tumors in mice with an antibody that we'd made to CTLA-4. I really couldn't believe it. It worked so well. Eventually, after a lot of skepticism, we teamed up with a small biotech company to move CTLA-4 blockade therapy into clinical trials. And as they say, the rest is history. Many additional breaks have been identified because many drugs against these breaks, now known generally as immune checkpoint therapy, treat the immune system, not the cancer. They are effective against many types of cancer. In melanoma, for example, about 20% of patients treated with anti-CTLA-4 alone are alive 10 years after a single treatment. And when combined with a drug called PD-1, another checkpoint, about 60% of patients are alive 3 years after therapy. This in a disease, when we started this work, had a median survival of 11 months after therapy, after diagnosis. And now we know that many other kinds of cancer also respond, although perhaps not as well as melanoma, but show promising results, including kidney cancer, bladder cancer, lung cancer, Hodgkin's lymphoma, Merkel cell carcinoma, and many others for which these drugs are approved by the FDA for use and now are in general application in the U.S. and throughout most of the other world. Of course, we still have a lot of work to do. We've not been able to treat many cancers, such as pancreatic cancers and glioblastoma, very terrible and lethal cancers. And we're continuing our efforts to help to make progress in the near future in addressing these terrible forms of cancer. And I'd just like to end by saying I owe this success to a large number of students and fellows who worked in my lab, a lot of clinicians and patients who were in the early clinical trials and risked having this experimental therapy, and owe special thanks to my wonderful partner in science and life, my wife, Pam Sharma. Thank you very much.
Tiene ahora la palabra el profesor Bjorn Stevens, director del Instituto Max Planck de Meteorología y presidente del Jurado de Cambio Climático.
The jury has bestowed the award on William Nordhaus for pioneering a framework that integrates knowledge from climate science, technology, and economics to identify effective policies against climate change.
Le ruego a la ministra.
I'd like to ask the Minister Teresa Rivera, the Minister for Ecological Transition, to please come up here to give the award to the prize winner.
Members of the presidency, authorities, jurors, distinguished guests, and friends, I would like to express my gratitude for the wonderful award. I'm honored to join those who've come before me, both in climate change and in other disciplines. It's a wonderful series of awards, and I'm most grateful. Climate change differs from many of the other fields represented on the stage today and in prior awards because it's unlike traditional areas like ecology, economics, biology, medicine, music. The field of climate change is a challenge that crosses both disciplinary boundaries and national boundaries. It requires the collaborative effort of many of these other fields to understand, to diagnose, and to remedy this growing disease on our planet. Now, I'm an economist by training, and as such, I quite naturally view climate change and the dangers of warming as a byproduct of economic growth, as an undesirable byproduct known in the technical language as an externality or an undesired spillover. The remedy that most economists would propose for externalities are either regulations or things like pollution taxes. And in this particular area, the remedy that is probably most prominent among specialists is what is known as a carbon tax. This is something that is a very old idea, maybe very old being 30 years perhaps. It was not taken seriously at the beginning, but I think it's fair to say that many of the people who view climate change as a serious global problem are coming around to the view that a carbon tax is one of the necessary ingredients for remedying it. I have a small saying that I like to use when people say, why do you want a tax? And the answer I would often say is, you want to tax bads, not goods. And it's a very simple adage, but it's actually quite accurate. Now, dealing with climate change adds a further complexity from some of the other issues, from the very individual level to the local level to the national level, because it is an international or global problem. And it shares this with many other of the dangers of the modern world, such as war, such as trade embargoes, and nuclear proliferation, in being something that cannot be solved by nations alone. And it requires international coordination and international cooperation. So it requires a different mindset in terms of how to deal with these global externalities or global issues. This is something where I think we, as a community of scholars, as a community of people working in this area, we're just coming to grips with the problems of what are known as free riding in respect to efforts for climate change, and to construct mechanisms to cope with the potential for free riding and to overcome those difficulties. I just might say one word about Spain, since we have so many people from Spain here, and in respect to international cooperation. When I first visited Spain in the 1960s, this was a dark period in Spain's history, and you could see it. You could see not just the military, but also the fear, but also the poverty of Spain. Now, Spain has come a long way since then, and I think in part, not wholly, but in part because of the international cooperation of being member of the European Union. And so now Spain is a completely different country from the one I first visited, being vibrant and prosperous and a democracy. And I think that's as good an example as I can think of how the benefits of international cooperation can come to individual countries, individual peoples, and to the globe as a whole. But solving problems such as the one we mentioned mean more than just cooperation. They require the proper knowledge. They require the understanding, in this particular case, of the science, of the ecology, of the economics, of the politics, of the strategies, of the negotiations. And that's where I would particularly like to point to this process, this activity of Bbva, the Bbva Foundation, as being one that puts science, the arts and sciences, in a premier place in terms of solving our global problems. We can't solve them with ignorant cooperation, but on the other hand, science alone can't do it. We need to marry the two if we're going to solve these problems, the problems of war, the problems of climate change, the problems of international health. So I would like to thank particularly the Bbva, partly personally, for recognizing the kinds of work that is going on in the economics of climate change, but more broadly, on behalf of the scientific community that is struggling to provide answers to these global questions, and to giving a kind of prominence in the current political atmosphere where you put people who are doing this kind of work, the serious kind of research that's represented on the stage, And I'd like to thank all of you very much.
Va a leer el
The extract of the minutes of the category of ecology and conservation biology will be read by the secretary of the jury, Pedro Jordana, who is professor of research in the biological station of Doñana. Thank you.
The jury has bestowed the award on Rosemary and Peter Grant for their profound contributions to our understanding of the mechanisms and processes by which evolution occurs in the wild, adding an evolutionary perspective to conservation biology. Rosemary and Peter Grant.
Ministra, le agradecería.
Minister, could you please come up here to the stage?
En nombre de los dos galardonados.
On behalf of the two award winners, the acceptance speech will be read by Professor Rosemary Grant.
Members of the Presidency, authorities, distinguished guests, Peter and I are deeply honoured to be chosen to receive the Bbva Foundation of Frontiers Knowledge Award for contributions to ecology and conservation. This wonderful award is particularly meaningful to us because it recognises ecology and contemporary evolution as joint factors in the pursuit of conservation of life on Earth. The extraordinarily rich biodiversity of our planet poses two fundamental questions: how to explain it and how to maintain it. Understanding the origin of biodiversity involves the evolutionary search for mechanisms of speciation. How do new species form? Understanding how to maintain this diversity in a fragile world experiencing environmental degradation on a global scale is one of the most critical challenges facing us today. One message from our research is that neither species nor environments are static entities. They are constantly changing, and we must find ways to keep them both capable of further natural change. Since 1973, we have been engaged in research in Ecuador, a country exceptionally rich in biological diversity and possessing a jewel, the Galapagos Archipelago. Our research on these islands has provided insights into how new species are formed and how communities of organisms might promote speciation in the future. First, we discovered that evolution by natural selection occurs far more strongly and more frequently than was previously appreciated. Second, we found that a new species may be formed by another, quite different process, that is, gene transfer between closely related species. Hence, evolution is the link between ecology and conservation. The future for many species hinges upon their evolutionary ability to respond to environmental stress, and that ability in turn depends largely on their genetic variation. In the long term, the generation of new species depends upon the complexity of communities of interacting organisms in their natural state. The global challenge to maintain biodiversity and to allow for future generations of new organisms is immense. Unless we meet this challenge, the current losses due to extinction will not be balanced by the formation of new species. Addressing this challenge requires not only collaboration between scientists, but also dialogue and sympathetic exchange of ideas and understanding between peoples of all cultures. Peter and I are humbled and deeply appreciative that our work and that of our colleagues has been honored by the BBVA Foundation, whose admirable aim it is, and I quote from the President, to push the limits of human knowledge and improve the lives of millions of people. Thank you.
El secretario del jurado de
Secretarial Jury of Economics, Finance, and Business Administration, Manuel Averaño, who is a professor of the Bank of Spain Center for Economic Studies, is going to read from the extract of the minutes of this award.
The jury has bestowed the award on Timothy Bresnahan, Ariel Pekis, and Robert Porter for their contributions to empirical industrial organization, in particular the development of methodologies with a significant impact on diverse applied fields where credible estimation of demand, productivity, and firm behavior are prerequisites for evidence-based policies.
En nombre de los galardonados.
On behalf of the award winners, the acceptance speech will be awarded by Professor Ariel Pekis.
Members of the Presidency, authorities, distinguished guests, and friends, we are grateful to the BBVA Committee and the Foundation for this prestigious award, and it's an honor to join the distinguished earlier winners of this award. We represent empirical industrial organization. It's a field of economics that studies imperfectly competitive markets, and that is almost all markets. Research in our field is motivated by questions associated with the regulation of these markets, such as antitrust authorities, enforcement. Our game theory colleagues provided us with the framework for the analysis of situations in which firms are strategics and account for the effects of their actions on their rivals' behavior. We three began to develop the tools that enabled the theoretical framework to be applied to actual markets. A large and very talented group of young scholars has enriched these tools and applied them to a wide variety of circumstances. It has been both a great privilege and really a lot of fun to be a part of the founding and rapid growth of this field. The tools developed by the field have enabled the analysis of the effects on consumer welfare, profitability, productivity of many phenomena: mergers, deregulation, the design of auctions and insurance markets, and much more. The analysis is characterized by the formulation of theoretical and statistical frameworks that are tailored to particular institutions and that can be used the available data. Initially, this analysis was, at the least, painstakingly slow. The advent of modern computers and the developments in the field means that it made it possible to use these tools to analyze many of the major regulatory issues facing our societies. And the advance has been very gratifying to the three of us. We would be remiss if we did not acknowledge some of our debts. Our research built on prior advances in empirical microeconomics and it bears the influence of our advisors, particularly Zvi Gerlikes and Richard Quant. Nor have we worked in isolation. We could have been joined on this podium by many of our co-authors, and we'd particularly like to mention Steve Berry, who's here, Ken Hendricks, and Peter Rees. I expect some of them will be on this podium again at some point. So we have been privileged to have worked also with outstanding students from whom we continue to learn, and we'd like to express our great appreciation to our families, particularly to Juliana, Lenny, and Therese. Thank you all.
On behalf of the Jury of Cooperation for Development, we're going to hear from its Secretary, Professor José García Montalvo, Professor of Economics at Pompeu Fabra University.
The jury has bestowed the award on Nubia Muñoz for establishing the epidemiological link between human papillomavirus and cervical cancer, catalyzing the development of vaccines against a disease of a very high incidence among women in developing countries. Dr. Nubia Muñoz.
Members of the Presidency authorities, distinguished guests, I am profoundly grateful to the BBVA Foundation, to the members of the jury, and to Javier Bosch and Josep Maria Antó, who put my name forward for this magnificent recognition. It is a great honor which I wish to share very particularly with my family and with my great friend, Dr. Javier Bosch, with whom I have worked closely for the last 3 decades. With my colleagues in Colombia and Spain, some of whom are here tonight, and with all those who have collaborated with me in a further 40 countries to prove beyond any doubt that human papillomavirus is the principal and necessary cause of cancer of uterine cervix. This discovery enabled the development of 2 ideal weapons for combating this cancer: a universal vaccine that protects against infection by the virus and can eliminate some 70 to 90% of the cancers it causes, and a test that can detect precancerous lesions of the cervix with enormous precision. The tragedy is that despite these 2 weapons have been available for over 10 years, cervical cancer remains a major public health problem. Each year, over 500,000 cases are diagnosed worldwide, and 280,000 women die of the disease. Even more tragically, 85% of cases affect young women in developing countries, whose deaths leave a family unprotected and likely to slide even deeper into poverty. How can this be possible? Perhaps because the very fact that this is cancer that eminently affects women in poor countries means it has not been given the importance it deserves. Fortunately, international institutions like the United Nations and the World Health Organization are beginning to react to this tragedy by taking positive steps. 1 month ago, the WHO Director General called for countries to join forces to eradicate cervical cancer. And now, this magnificent award from the Bbva Foundation will serve to highlight the vital role of science in solving this great public health problem. Clearly, if we already have the ideal weapons at our disposal to put an end to this cancer, the solution must lie largely in the hands of politicians. We must convince governments to allocate sufficient funds. We must help poor countries by giving them the technology needed to beat this cancer. And above all, we must educate health professionals and the general public about the huge public health problem that cervical cancer represents and the weapons we have to achieve its eradication. Thank you very much.
El profesor
Professor Puch Abshon, who is professor of music at the music department of Bangor University in the UK, and secretary of the jury, will precede the extract from the minutes on the category of contemporaneous music.
The jury has bestowed the award on Kaya Sariaho for creating a personal, recognizable voice that exhibits a seamless interweaving of the worlds of acoustic music and technology, and is endowed with a unique quality that is almost as visual as it is sonorous. Kaya Sariaho.
Thank you for this important recognition. I represent here today, next to my fellow recipients, the other knowledge. To have this award as a composer next to scientists and scholars fills me with hope. Music has always had a fundamental role for humanity, but today it is in danger, as all arts are. There are many common things in musical composition and scientific research, and they have often fed off each other, as my own experience can testify. But where science relies on facts, music enters us without words, sometimes deeply and unexpectedly, like a smell, and reveals to us new meanings about ourselves. Music has its own logic that we perceive over time, often through several senses simultaneously. We hear instruments having different roles. We see musicians reacting to the music they perform. We are moved, feel happiness, sadness, loneliness, or a sense of community. We forget ourselves and learn about others, and discover different ways of perceiving the world around us. This is one of the important things that only art can give to all of us through new, unexpected mixtures of thoughts and sensations. And it helps us to grow as humans and communicate with others. Today, technology is an everyday tool in the arts, as in all domains. I have been working with computers for my music since 1982 and have used technology as a microscope to learn more about sound, its parameters, its perception and cognition, to understand better my own compositional process and extend the traditional instrumental sonic world with processing and synthesis. Thanks to research and digital tools, I have pushed the limits of my knowledge. But there are also drawbacks of technology. In music, the harm starts with the sound pollution that surrounds us everywhere today. Technology in music is mostly not used for artistic needs, but to fabricate and impose worldwide seasonal products for purely economic interests. Human knowledge of creation is quite different from certain techniques used today. For instance, an artificial intelligence to produce naive, mediocre music based on so-called learning from existing models, while bringing no true understanding of the creative process. There should be more close collaborations between scientists and artists to develop knowledge about the complex sources of creation. This award is for me a call for responsibility and integrity in artistic creation. To let music continue enriching the lives of peoples means giving place and recognition to deep, sincere artistic work, which is irreplaceable. Thank you.
Durante el desarrollo
During the development of this ceremony, as well as in your programs, you will have seen the figure of spirals whose lines are intertwined, reflecting the interrelation and crossings between the different fields of knowledge and culture. It is the sculpture of the Frontier of Knowledge Awards that all the awardees will receive, and whose author is the artist Blanca Muñoz. Next, we're going to speak from Professor Rosa Menendez, who is a chairman of the Higher Council of Scientific Research, an institution that collaborates with these awards. The Foundation BBVA would like to express its gratitude for this collaboration, which guarantees the objectivity in the evaluation of merit and excellence. Chairman of the Bbva Foundation, Minister, Secretary of State, Head of the Foundation, authorities, members of the jury, award winners, colleagues, friends. The 10th edition of the Frontier of Knowledge Awards. What a timely moment for reflection. The Foundation with the creation of these awards, I think got ahead in a concern that is very much present today in our society. We call science the process of gathering, processing, and understanding of the world. Its methodology is fundamentally empirical and ratifiable. The name Frontiers of Knowledge, nevertheless, goes beyond that, trying to overcome the paradigms of science and explore, very often with discouraging results, what seems to go beyond that, beyond what we can even imagine. But it is a most attractive thing for us, scientists, and it is a basis, sometimes a surprising one, for new applications of science and technology that are immediate, that are the ones that usually get more financial support. Our innate ambition is precisely to go beyond those frontiers. And very often, we don't even stop to think about the meaning and how they can be taken advantage of. In basic sciences, physics, chemistry, mathematics, as well as in biology and biomedicine, progress has gone at such breakneck speed in the past century and continues to be so in this one, that the frontiers have shifted, have expanded, and at the same time have moved away in all directions. Often we are not aware of the consequences of these huge specialization and the difficulty in many cases of connecting these results with its potential applications very often on the mid and long term. For that reason, it is a great satisfaction to congratulate the award winners in these categories who have connected with two areas, energy and medicine, and they have done so with such a huge impact. But if these awards have been pioneers, it is because, moreover, they have been able to see the other face of that frontier of knowledge, the frontier with our society. Society, gradually but constantly, has become aware of the incredible impact that science and, more generally speaking, knowledge is having and will have in its future. The choice of the subjects, looking back, couldn't be more to the point. Ecology and biology of conservation, together with climatic change, have consolidated in these 10 years as central subjects of social concern, where these sustainable solutions can only come with research. We need to approach issues as the ones that the award winners have studied, to better know the mechanism by which species adapt, or to be able to jointly model climate technology and the economy. In the recent high-level workshop of the organization Science Europe, in which the CSIC participates together with many other European research institutions, and of which I have the honor of being vice chairman, we were thinking about this very critical role that science has to play today. Being able to approach the challenges that society is defining for us, on which society wants us to focus our attention. Moreover, it requires active participation. And the challenges are clear. The United Nations Sustainable Development Objectives. Some of these were able not only to approach, to solve them. The award today for Cooperation for Development is just an example of it. Congratulations. But most probably, we need to take another step forward, revolutionize the way in which we do science, going from projects to missions, from specialization to interdisciplinarity, from groups to teams. I am convinced that in the next years, some of these awards, Frontiers of Knowledge, will go along those lines. I have left for the end the three things that worry me the most about these Frontiers of Knowledge, and I hope to convey this concern and at the same time present a challenge to you for you to solve. Firstly, the importance, increasingly more critical, of information and communication technologies. This year, the award recognizes the importance of developments in cryptology. It is very difficult to doubt the contribution that information and communication technologies have made to the disappearance of the frontiers of information in our planet. But immediately, we become aware of the importance of the ethical frontiers that must govern the use of information, and that we can only guarantee if we're able to maintain public research in the frontier of knowledge. And this is a challenge, and it is not an easy one. Secondly, economic frontiers, and therefore social ones. The work awarded in the category of economics, finance, and business administration recognizes the importance of the new empirical industrial economy and of measuring the power of markets. But knowledge does not entail justice nor equality, not even although some scientists might think so, freedom. It must be society, it must be all of us who must become aware of the importance of considering this dimension of the frontiers of knowledge. And lastly, I'd like to refer, but on a particularly positive note, to the award to contemporary music. If I made you listen now to a musical fragment, for example, a Toccata Fugue from Bach, you would automatically think of the author. But a small group of people, perhaps some of them in this room, would fundamentally think, basically, scientists specialized in fluids would think about Fourier and not in Bach. Some of us would hear music. Others would envision the modes of Fourier, simple and complex harmonics, waves. That is another clear vision of the frontier. Here we have recognized that of science and music today, and in the case of this Finnish artist, that of technology and artistic creation. We don't really know whether we're at the verge of a revolution in the way we live. If we look at the movement of the frontier of knowledge in these past 10 years that we are celebrating today, perhaps we should reach the conclusion that yes, that is so. If we're able finally not only to be able to preserve our planet, to improve our living conditions, to make sure that most of the work is carried out by robots with intelligence, but apart from that, guarantee a fair and freer society, then all of us can turn our attention to that which today, and even in such a technological world, makes us truly human. creativity. For all these reasons, I need only congratulate the BBVA Foundation, its chairman, its director, for this initiative in its 10th anniversary, which has been so successful in the role of reflection and assessment of the development of knowledge, and where the Higher Council for Scientific Research is so proud to collaborate. Thank you very much. Finally, the chairman of the Bbva Foundation and Bbva Group, Francisco González, is going to deliver the closing speech of this 10th edition of the Frontier of Knowledge Awards, which are the expression of the commitment of the whole of the Bbva Group with knowledge, technology, innovation, and ethical principles.
Lady Minister for Ecologic Transition, authorities, members of the diplomatic corps, rectors, Lady President of the High Council for Scientific Research, dear members of the Board of Administration of Bbva, members of the jury, laureates, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to you all. It is a great satisfaction to celebrate the 10th edition of Bbva Frontiers of Knowledge Awards. And it is a token of recognition to understanding the natural world, the social world, as well as artistic creation. Curiosity and behaving according to the acquisition of knowledge are features that characterize our species. And based on that, we have acquired a lot of knowledge, and that means lots of technological applications and contributing to this mindset that's going to be modulated individually and collectively, the culture of society. Bbva Foundation Frontiers of Knowledge Awards are a token of recognition to scientific contributions in a wide range of artistic and scientific contributions, to whom have been pioneers and outstanding in rendering this possible. We understand we want to convey to the society some elements of creation, hypothesis generation, and the construction of models and theories that are empirically confirmed, always open to improvement based on the rationale peer revision. I'd like people to understand the beauty of the emotion of imagining and creating things, the value of daring to go beyond, pushing frontiers of knowledge and enhancing sensitivity. Our scientific culture within our society is weak, and it's based on technological pillars of knowledge. During the second decade of 21st century, we're witnessing how this viewing angle is getting narrow, and it's circumscribed into pushing buttons or applying software applications, and that renders us vulnerable as individuals and as a society. And we're vulnerable when we talk about global governance. In this domain, we live at a given paradox. We're facing problems and opportunities of great importance worldwide. To understand this well and to tackle this with decision, we have a powerful science that's growing continuously, and we have a reliable and very good ally, which is the scientific community. But at the same time, when taking individual decisions or sometimes public decisions, it is not used, this potential. It is just put at stake, and recently it is put on an equal footing with options that are lacking foundation, a solid foundation, or denying even the validity of results from research. We have a cognitive capital that is amazing, but we live with this post-truth, which Oxford Dictionary thinks it is, and I quote, denoting circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal beliefs, end of quote. This is malicious falsehood, hiding the truth, and propaganda. That's nothing new, but what is new, partly new, is this shameless statement that knowledge is on an equal footing than personal opinions, and to deflate the value of data that stem from research and putting at the same level emotions, stereotypes, social stereotypes, and while taking public decisions of the most or the highest importance. This populist movements or trends are just correlated with this current attack to scientific rationale and empiric evidence. This lack of scientific culture in our society that has been seen along the last decades, interacting with the crisis of this business model, and in the case of social media, the traditional social media, and this eclosion of what we consider as social media, those are contributing to the creation of an ecosystem where it is very difficult to distinguish knowledge, the validated knowledge, from a narration that is at the service of a non-rational or non-robust or non-confirmed knowledge. Digital technology, the internet, for instance, the World Wide Web, and social networks are, without any doubt, enlarging in a dramatic mode the frontier of individual opportunities and group opportunities. Long 3 decades, we've moved on from a limited access and a non-symmetric access to information and knowledge at a high cost to a situation where there is like an overabundance and almost for free access to information from most of the people in developed societies through several channels. We have to welcome this, and we have to consider this as an indicator of social progress, of course. But the main problem nowadays is to get oriented in this flood of information from different sources, different bases, and unequal footing. And we have to say that the mass media, which we have to say they are submitted to editing processes and other processes in social media that are considered the main source of information for big segments of population, for the most of the population. Data are presented, what is confirmed is compared on an equal footing to biased information that is subjective and subjective opinions. There is a lack of confidence, and there is a transfer of credibility to social media, among other reasons, because they will give a feedback to their own opinions and what's fashionable at a given point in time. They give security and safety, but at a high price, lack of truthfulness. And that might erode our public institutions in light of pluralism, and this might put at stake individual rights, the right to privacy. There are very many variables we should take into consideration. We should take advantage of the digital society, all the new elements. We have a new legal framework, rules and regulations, which will stop some global companies to concentrate the power, and there are engineers and companies that should get back some characteristics of the ethos of empowerment from individuals and communities that characterized the taking off of the internet and the society, and that was studied at universities, and that was part of the aim of education a certain time ago. It is necessary to keep on deepening in basic research where algorithms and protocols are able to make sure privacy and in the case of digital transactions. All companies, like is the case of Bbva, they play a key role in this digital space, and they should integrate and render explicit the social endeavor and values that are targeting solutions, technological solutions and applications, and for that they should consider clients, being client-oriented with engagement and being client and user-oriented. We have to rethink financial sustainability and the transformation of the media, and that's fundamental to maintain and construct a well-informed public opinion. And for that, it is necessary to enhance our efforts in order to improve scientific culture and technological culture within our society, navigating in this universe of a blurred frontier, what is not confirmed, what is subjective and validated information. It is not, at any case, it is not becoming scientists in the case of each person, but it is disseminating, updating basically the knowledge on the world, the knowledge that is given by science, methods, scientific methods, and even what's been considered knowing the institution, the science as an institution, the lab, journals, and peer reviews. Those are mechanisms allowing us to validate, even in a temporary mode, knowledge. There is a fascination, latent fascination within society regarding science and confidence. There is a lot of confidence in scientific community, but there is a lack of paying attention to awards and incentives to contribute in an individual mode and as a group to disseminate scientific culture, to let it disseminate into a target audience. So, and we have to say that it's useful to give more importance to the outstanding figures and opening windows of observation towards scientific knowledge worldwide. Without that importance, science won't be able to compete with other professions that are less fundamental for our welfare, but that are more visible to the public opinion. Awards are a way to achieve that, and we're convinced of that. This is what we've created, Frontiers of Knowledge Awards 10 years ago. That was a way to have a celebration of creativity of the scientific community, men and women. We give a token of recognition too in this wide range of knowledge and creativity are models to emulate, models to know. And no doubt, there are very many challenges ahead in front of us, not only in this digital era. 10 years ago, when we started with Frontiers of Knowledge Awards, some leaders, some opinion leaders had doubts on climate changes, and some other people were denying climate changes in a categoric mode, and they were biased, and they did it with an interest in mind. So we aligned with the consensus of scientific community at the time, and we added this category and ecology and conservation biology to give a token of recognition to the conservation of life in planet Earth. At the same time, there were basic sciences, biomedicine, or economics. Knowledge as a main aspect in basic research, what Abraham Flexner, what was considered at the end of the 30s in the United States as the usefulness of the useless knowledge. The usefulness of the useless knowledge. and that's been presented here by our laureates as an important thing. And we wanted art to be represented also throughout one of the most important fields, music, contemporary music, with multiple links with knowledge and technology. And that's a fundamental role for us to discover new meanings, as the laureate said, the lady laureate has mentioned. With this approach, in this 10th edition, we can say, and we would like to quote one of our laureates, Professor Nordhaus, that, and he said, the Club of Laureates is a club of excellence, in search for excellence, creativity, and the passion of discovering things, knowing more, and the engagement to contribute to life, a better life of people, and to protect the life of our planet. Thank you for your words, Professor. Thank you. The awardees are here. They're here due to the contributions, similar contributions with the help of the families, the co-workers, but also, and they're here because of what the institutions and people proposing them as candidates. And they're here thanks to the excellence of our juries, experts at the highest level in all fields. And I'd like to thank them for their engagement with their know-how and rendering this very objective in assessing the candidacies. We can say that without the members of the jury, the awards wouldn't have achieved the level we have as a world reference. And I'd like to say that we say if we have good members of the jury, we're going to have good laureates. If we have good experts, we are going to improve each year, and we're going to keep up with this level, and that's a challenge for the future we'll have. I'd like to thank our partners, High Council for Scientific Research, CSIC, our main multidisciplinary institution in research fields that have been working with us in assessing the candidacies, a lot of work also, and creating the juries. There is a lot of work there. Thank you, Professor Rosa Menendez, President of the High Council for Scientific Research, for this great help. Thank you. And I'd like to thank you all, Lady Minister, authorities, members of the diplomatic corps, members of the media, researchers, members of the cultural world. And we would like to thank our director, Rafael Pardo, who's the alma mater of what we have achieved today. Thank you all, and thank you for giving this token of recognition to arts and sciences. And thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you all for being here with us. Thank you.
I'd like to.
The floor is to the Lady Minister. The Lady Minister, you have the floor. Teresa Rivera. Mrs. Teresa Rivera, you have the floor.
Okay, just 3 minutes, please, just to express my gratitude after an extraordinary event, which I think reflects extraordinary lives and extraordinary work. Firstly, I would like to, of course, thank the chairman and heads of the juries, but particularly the laureates, for their dedication, for doing precisely what the slogan says, as Francisco González, the chairman, just reminded us of. How can we improve the quality of people's lives, preserving that of the planet? That perhaps is the subtitle that I would like to my work is something that I will be working on in my newly created ministry. And an event such as this one, I think, reflects the challenge that we are faced with, that requires the best of knowledge from the point of view of basic sciences, but also from applied sciences, human sciences, and emotions, too, and art. the combination of a good understanding of what is happening with a good understanding of potential solutions to those challenges that we are facing, what we do, what we don't do, how we can combine different solutions. Why do we react or don't react to certain behaviors that, although they are rational, nevertheless are not present in our daily lives? Explains part of the unanswered questions that we will all have to continue to contribute to. The contribution of the understanding of science, society, the economy, public institutions, and private ones in an interconnected, interdependent world where frontiers can be of knowledge, but they are diluted into many other borders where we cannot tell the difference as very easily the border between one thing and the other. That's why we need to jointly work on solutions. Where the greatest challenge we have ahead of us, the most important challenge looking forward, is to build valid answers in a very short period of time, and therefore contributing to shape complex answers with everyone's contributions. And I think that what we experienced this afternoon reflects perfectly that critical spirit, systemic spirit, that commitment, lifelong work, and somehow that reflects what knowledge and commitment should be, that of a ministry, my ministry, which wishes to be the ministry of solidarity with future generations without forgetting the concerns of the people of the present. Thank you very much for your efforts. Congratulations for these 10 years. Congratulations to the award winners. And also thank you very much to the members of the jury for each one of the award categories. Thank you, Chairman. We're about to end the ceremony. Now the award winners and the chairman and other authorities will be leaving this room, and we will ask the audience to remain in their seats for just a minute longer, please.
No podemos concluir sin darles las gracias a todos ustedes por participar en esta celebración del conocimiento y de la cultura e invitarles al cóctel que se va a servir a continuación en el patio de este Palacio del Marqués de Salamanca, donde podrán felicitar personalmente a todos los premiados. Muchas gracias y buenas noches.